Hey guys, welcome back to another video. I've done a bit of organising in the shed, bit of moving around, a bit of shuffling. I've got the coupe stashed away in the corner. The F100's seen daylight for the first time in about a year and a half, and after a fair bit of effort I managed to pull this thing inside. So this video, hopefully if all goes well, I'm going to have the cab and front end off this chassis and hopefully the chassis outside. There's a fair bit to do. And I'm a little bit sad about this, but yeah, let's get into that. The coupe, I've got parts on order for that. I've got to work out some more hoses and fittings and that sort of thing. So I want to do a decent video on that. I don't want to do a little bit here and there. So that one's just going to sit just for a little while. The F100, for those that are new and haven't watched the last video on the F600, these two things share the same cab, the same sheet metal. The guards are different, but the bonnet, doors and cab are the same. This is a really, really good cab, despite appearances. That's going to end up on this. So that's why I'm pulling this truck apart. As I said, I'm a bit sad about it because the more I look at this truck, this is a really, really nice truck. And on the outside, if it was to be restored though, mechanically and the chassis, the brakes, everything needs going through on this truck. There's a lot that needs doing on it. So the cab is really nice, the rest not so much. It's not as good as the big grey truck outside. So, but the more I look at it, and as a complete truck, it looks really cool and looks really nice. So I'm a little bit sad about pulling it apart. But I do have an idea for the front of this truck and parts off the F100, which I'll go over later. But yeah, for now I've got to start pulling this one apart. The truck is still entirely complete, including the fuel tank behind the seat, which has got to come out. The seat's got to come out. There's a lot going on in this for a basic truck. There's a bunch of stuff I've got to pull out. I'm going to leave the dash in there. I'll pull the steering column out. The cab is staying complete with the doors, glass and everything like that, dash. But there's a few big things to pull out. So I'll get on with that now. No surprises with the mess under the seat here. It's been a mouse or a family of mice under here. I had to undo the seats via these bolts, which is a bit of a nuisance. These ones have seized to the floor. This one, the first bolt I touched on the truck, so easy. I thought, this is actually going to be good. The other three seized solid. I'd say it's probably from mice piss. But yeah, I'll get this cleaned out and then I'll have a look at this tank. Now I've got the fuel tank out and the truck's looking really nice behind here. No issues so far. If I looked awkward moving the fuel tank out of the truck, it's over half full of fuel, so I've got to sort that out as well. Quick side note, the floor on this one, so the F500 through to 700, these are the two cab mount bolts under these covers here. The F100 through to F350 uses the two outside ones. So all the pressings and holes and everything are there for all the models. Another difference is the gearbox cover, the trans cover on these. The tunnel is lower because the truck sits so high above the gearbox. That doesn't have to be as tall. And the steering column goes through the floor instead of the firewall. So there's no hole in the dash for the steering column that the F100 through to F350 has. So I'm going to have to replicate that into this cab when I get this one ready to go onto the other truck. But for now, that's pretty much all I'm going to take out of the cab. I'm going to push the truck back a little bit after I move the fuel tank and concentrate on getting the grille and guards off, getting all the front end out of this thing. After a long 2 days of putting down irrigation piping and sprinklers and laying turf on my front lawn, I'm back out working on this. It kind of beat me the other night. I got a bit frustrated with it. I'll explain why. So these trucks, they've got not just the bolts on top of the guards. There's about 50 bolts holding on the inner guards and the outer guards, the inner guards, and the grille. Most of these came out not too bad. I broke those two. These ones were a bit of a struggle, but I got these out. Now this grille shell, there's actually bolts that come in from inside the guard into clips inside here. So there's one of the bolts coming through there with through the clip. If you can see this one here and the one below it, there's a square nut that's sort of crimped into the clip itself. And if there's any corrosion on the bolt whatsoever or any crap on there, as soon as it grabs that nut, it spins and comes out of that clip. And all the bolts on the grill, so there's one right down, two down the bottom, there's three up the side there, there's one here which I can't get to. All of those square nuts on all of those bolts holding that grill to this guard and the other guard have all spun, and it's a real struggle to grip them. So I'm going to try cutting the heads off the bolts under the guard so I can get up under the guard there with the grinder for most of them. There's a couple that are a real pain in the ass though. I don't know if it comes up on the video, but I've got the two aircon units cranking at the moment. They're 23 degrees. I'm trying to get some warmth into the shit. It's freezing. And I've got a thumping headache to go along with it. But first thing I want to do is jack the front of the truck up and put some axle stands under the front axle so I can get these wheels turning, so I can get some room under there and have got these bolts. So this is the next day, back out in the shed. Did a bit of irrigation work out the front of the house today. I've only got a few hours to get as much done as I can, so I'm not sure how I'm going to go, but I'm going to get stuck into this. Last night was very frustrating. These two bolts here that hold the inner guard, it was sandwiched to the guard between the inner guard and the bracket that holds everything to the body. I snapped those and one of them sticks out through the other side and the guard was hung up on that. These bolts here, as you saw, I had to cut every one of these, and the top one, you can see a little bit of the grinding on there. I had to sort of lever the grill out a little bit and get the 1mm cutting disc between the guard and the grill, which wasn't much fun, but I got it done. Yeah, so I haven't got much time today, and after today I'm not going to be here for a week, so I'm going to try and get as much done as I can now. I might not record everything just because of how long it takes to set up, but I want to get that other guard and the grill off, and if I can, loosen the cab mount bolts. I've made a bit of progress. Both the outer guards, the inner guards, the grille shell are off. The second inner guard and the second guard were a lot easier than the first ones once I figured out all the hidden bolts, and then it's a lot quicker just to cut them off with the 4-inch grinder. So much easier. But for now, it's that time, so I'm going to stop here, go inside, have a shower, pack, go to the airport, do a week's worth of work in Perth, and then fly back and then get stuck back into it. So there's going to be a little bit of a transition here, and I'll be straight back into it, so I'll be right back. Just like that, it's a week later, I'm back in Adelaide. Bit of a long week, that one. Don't really want to think about that one too much, but I'm back. I'm working on trucks. Bit of a late start today. I've only got a few hours left in today to do work, but I now have a 64 Cadillac Coupe de Ville in my backyard. It's not mine. It's not mine. I'm just looking after it for a mate. But yeah, let's go inside and play the trucks. So the Cadillac is a mate's car that was dropped off this morning by Tow Kings. I'm just looking after it temporarily. Spent a bit of time this morning getting the wheels off it. It's got 3 flat tires and some collapsed shocks, so it was sitting on its belly pretty much. So I've got the wheels off there. I'll take those in tomorrow afternoon, get some tires put on it, and might have a look at that tomorrow. It's got a big block in it. I'm not sure what size, a 400 and something cube big block. Was a runner, but yeah, that's a cool thing. But for now, I'm going to concentrate on getting this thing apart some more. Radiator, support panel and radiator next. Hopefully I don't make too much of a mess getting that apart. And then I'm just going to go through and get rid of some of the stuff off the firewall, the wiring, all these air hoses that I don't need, I'm not going to use. And that should be pretty much it, apart from the 4 bolts holding the cab on. And not sure how far I'll get with that tonight, definitely tomorrow. But for now, this stuff. This is taking a lot longer than I was hoping, but there's a fair bit to pull off this, and I spent a lot of today messing around with the Cadillac, moving that around, getting tires put on it. But things like brake and clutch lines, choke cable, steering column, all sorts of hoses, all the little wiring bits here and there. That's all out. The gear shift's out. I've got the 2 front cab bolts out. They came out, well, not too much effort. So all that's holding this whole thing on now is the 2 rear main bolts. I'd like to take it off with the bonnet attached. That's a lot of weight hanging on the front though, and these cabs are quite front heavy to start with. I can strap the cab down to the hoist arms so it doesn't tip, lift it up and then drop it down a bit, so this is a bit more manageable, especially by myself. But yeah, everything's done apart from those 2 rear bolts. I'm not sure how hard those are going to come out. The front ones weren't too bad. A little bit of effort, but not too bad. But yeah, all that's holding it on now is those 2 rear bolts. So I'll have a quick go at one of them now. It's almost 10 p.m. So I don't want to make too much noise, and if it's going to be a pain in the ass, I'll leave it till tomorrow. But yeah, I just want to see how much effort it's going to be. If they're easy, then I'll be out here tomorrow morning and I'll get this off. Next day, heading back out to the shed. Just take a moment to appreciate the patina on this Cadillac. I can't get over how cool this thing looks. I wish it was mine. Big trucks out there sunbathing, but back to this one. I had a crack at the 2 cab bolts last night. They jammed solid. I couldn't get to them with my small rattle gun. Didn't want to budge. I did buy myself a little gas torch, like a little hobby gas torch from Bunnings, but and a couple of gas bottles, and I don't have the right fitting for that. I could go down and get that so I could heat up these bolts and loosen them, but it's a bit out of the way and I'll get distracted and I'll go off and do something else. So I'm going to try and get up inside that crossmember with the little grinder and see how I go. I've put a couple of bits of wood up under the front of the cab there to prevent any rolling forward or anything. So I'm going to cut those and see what happens. This could be interesting. Well, that was surprisingly easy and very uneventful, which was what I was hoping for on both counts. Cab came off nice and easy. It was balanced on the hoist nicely. There was no tension on that strap when I first lifted it up. I have cinched it down just to keep it in place, but I was expecting the bonnet to want to pull the cab forward. But it's sitting up there all right. I've got to move the Cadillac out of the way a little bit and roll this chassis outside, then I'll drop this down onto some trolleys and have a bit of a clean up in here. But I want to take you can see them there, the front cab mounts. I want to take those off the chassis because I may use those on the F100 chassis and keep these cab mounts. The F100, I don't know if you can remember from earlier videos, but the F100 mounts on the front of the firewall. These are tucked underneath, which I quite like. I do need to trim a little bit out of them, but I think that might work well. And I may even be able to use the F100 chassis brackets on these cab mounts with a little bit of work. I'll work that out later. But there's a few things I want to cut out from under the cab while it's up in the air. I'll probably do that now. It'll make sense to do that now. There's a big bar across the back where these mounts are, and I'll cut that wide enough to slot down over the F100 chassis. Interestingly enough, the little F100 chassis is exactly the same width as this truck chassis, so cab mounts, measurements, working things out, that makes things a lot easier. But for now, I'll move that car, move this, and we'll have a look underneath. With the help of the big truck out there, I've got the chassis out of the way. I've had a bit of a clean up, put some tools away. Did a bit of drone work inside the shed just for a bit of a laugh. But let's have a look underneath here what I've got to modify first up. Now the first issue is this cross member here, this big support brace. Those are the cab bolts. The F100 doesn't have such a large brace across there. In fact, this pretty much got no brace. It's just a plate on the underside. Hopefully the light's okay under here. It's just a second skin under here where the seat bolts go through. The F100 uses these two bolts on the chassis, but without this brace, so they come straight through the floor. All this is in the way of the chassis rails on the F100. So I've made a couple of marks here. These are the outside of the chassis rails, so the chassis rails will slot up here. So I'm going to cut up to the floor on this. This thickness here is different to this thickness. There's still going to be a bit hanging down, but I'm going to cut up to the floor as much as I can on the inside for now and open that out, and then we'll be able to sit it on the chassis at the back. This brace here is the same, I believe. This floor hump here, the transmission hump, is a lot lower. The F100 is quite tall. This one's shallow because the cab sits up so high above the engine. That doesn't matter because I've got to cut a lot of that out anyway to go over the trans with how low I'm having the cab. These are the front cab mounts. Just got to take a little slither off this one and this section out here. Sorry about the light on there, guys. Because I want to get the rails as close as I can to the floor without touching the floor, so I want to take that out. This big brace here, that's only on the big trucks. The F100s don't have those. These cutouts here, that's the left-hand drive of the truck steering column. The F100s come up through here. This is the left-hand side. So this is all pressed like this in the factory in the States and then shipped over. So those holes there, they'll all be cleaned up and filled. That brace will be taken out later on. The firewall, I want to redo the whole firewall. But all these braces here, I don't need those, don't need that hole. I've got to get rid of this brace because these are actually offset to the F100s as well. So I'm going to clean all that up and put some nice panels through here and maybe do the trans tunnel as well. But for now, just to get it off the hoist and over by the frame there, I just want to cut out these sections here. I'm not going to fill them in or anything at the moment. I'm just going to cut them out, clearance it all. Then I can drop it down. I've got a couple of trolleys down here, a couple of dollies, and drop that down on the floor. And I can set it over by the F100, and that'll be it for now. Matching patina. Unfortunately, I missed that. I put my pry bar in one of the cuts and gave it a bit of a lever, and the whole thing came down with a thud. I wasn't sure if these webbing parts, these braces, were welded up inside. I thought they might give me some grief, but they just popped straight out. I'll give that cut a bit of a clean up, but you can see I've just notched it for the chassis rails pretty much. But now I'll move on to these little notches here. These will be quick and easy. And I might look at taking this off as well. Just done some rearranging, some musical cars. Coupe's still in the same place. I want to leave that on the dollies as long as I can because it's really easy to move like that. The F100, as you saw, I moved it. So I used the F700 with the car trailer to move the F100. To do that, I had to get the Colorado out to skull drag the F600 chassis out of the way, and I had to push the Cadillac out of the way of the doors so I could access these two doors behind me here. And then use the car trailer with the big truck to drag the F100 up, move it over, and then put it back there. That's easier than trying to move it around with no steering connected. The steering rack's in there, but there's no column or anything, and it's just easier to drag it straight out and straight over while moving all the other cars around. But anyway, so F100's in place, ready to pull apart. This cab's good to go. I did cut the front cab mounts off the F600 chassis, so I'm going to clean those up and get those ready. While I'm here talking about the F100, I've had a couple of people on the socials asking what I'm doing with this cab and what my plans are. So this cab here, this is rust free. This is a really, really nice cab. That cab there, if you look back through my previous videos, if you remember, and you can sort of see, that roof isn't actually attached. There's a lot of rust around the front of that roof, but the skin itself is nice. I have mentioned in many previous videos that I do have some parts for that truck. Up there in that box is a brand new reproduction roof skin for that truck. LMC, I believe. Might be Auto Metal Direct, I can't remember. But Bo sourced that for me when he got a roof for one of his trucks. So I've got a whole new roof for it. That one, it does need a lot of work. The cab corners are shot, the whole floor needs replacing. I rushed some floor repairs and I'm not happy with it. And I want to do a body drop on this later. I don't want to cut the floor out of this one because it's too nice. This one is going to get a lot of work done to it. There is rust. There's pinholes through here on this side. The bottom of the A-pillar is fairly shot. So a whole new floor, cab corners, lots of little pieces. There's speaker holes cut up in the pillars there. I do have a back half of a roof to repair that. But there's a lot of work that needs doing on that one. So that one is going to be a long-term tuck away in the corner, out of the way, and then eventually, I want to do a full restoration on that cab, like a proper, decent one with nice paint and everything. And then that'll go back on this chassis and I'll redo the whole truck. I'll do the tub, guards and everything. But for now, it's going to be a patina build with this cab. Later on, it's going to be really nice. And then this cab, these plans may change because this is a really nice cab. I might just paint this one and leave this one on there. I don't know. So as it stands, I have a spare cab. Well, I'll end up with a spare cab. I've got a full-size truck, like a F500 to F700 front end. Everything to build something else. And I'd really love to build a like a dually fifth wheel tow rig with a wedge trailer or something like that. Something ridiculous, but that's way down the track. Yeah, that might just be like a pipe dream, I don't know. But that's something I'd love to look at in the future. But for now, this cab onto there, then that cab tucked away and restored. I was talking to Bowden, who owns the other F100s outside, and we were talking about cleaning up this paint a little bit. And he said, just have a go with some 2500 or 2000 grit sandpaper and see what happens. That's some wet and dry paper. Just soak the paper and then give it a bit of a rub back. And that's what I've come up with 2000 so far. And I'm really happy with that. The downside to this is how good it looks. I've now got the entire truck to do. Granted, it's only the cab, so that's not too bad. But when it comes up that nice, I'm quite keen to do it. So there's still, you can see it here, there's still fine scratches all through it, but you can hear so yeah, I'm happy with that. If I can get that reflection with all the red paint, I'll be stoked. It's also interesting that this has got a green undercoat on it. I think it's, well, it's green, but I don't know if it's a green, but the door where that's rubbed through is white, and this is green. But it's all factory paint. And it's a 58-year-old paint too, 58 years old. So for it to come up like that, I'm pretty happy. So next video will be this going onto that. Basically set it in place, put cab mounts in, bolt it down, put the front panels back on, make it look like a complete truck, and then swap it back into this corner, and then that one will go back on the hoist and straight back into that. Because I've pretty much got everything I need to do a whole bunch of work on that, and I'm excited. So I'll see how I go. I'm also out of action for the next 3 weeks. I've got work and I've got family stuff. I've got a big family thing coming up. So next video, I'm not too sure, but it'll be continuation of the cab swap, then back onto the coupe. Thanks for hanging around, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for coming back and watching the videos. Welcome to the new people. subscribe, like and share and all that sort of thing if you would like, it'd be appreciated. Otherwise, I hope you're all well, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks.